Alrighty, day 2 on 5.1 is all about getting a little bit more precise with our units of measurement for degrees. So degrees is a pretty big unit. When we talk about degrees, minutes, seconds, so being able to break down that precision a little bit. So instead of just having degrees as a large unit, we can break it down into smaller increments into minutes and seconds. So when we do that, we call that DMS, degrees, minutes, seconds. If you think in your head hours, when you do this, like a degree being an hour, all of the conversions work really, really well. So when we talk about what that looks like, so if you think in hours, like if a degree were an hour, and we talk about how many minutes are there in an hour, well, 60. So 60 minutes in an hour, well, that's the same thing for degrees. There's 60 minutes in 1 degree. For seconds, how many seconds are there in a minute? Well, in the clock, that's 60 again, so it's the exact same for us. There's 60 seconds in a minute. And then if you want to go all the way from seconds into degrees, it's exactly the same as going from seconds into hours. So there's 3,600 seconds in a degree, just like 3,600 seconds in an hour, 60 times 60. So those are the conversions we can go back and forth and talk about to make our measurements a little bit more precise. So I'm giving you an example down at the bottom here. 25 degrees, 40 minutes, 21 seconds would be an example of a number written in DMS, degrees, minutes, seconds. Okay, so when do people use stuff like this? You'll see it all the time, like in latitude and longitude. If you think back into your world geography back in middle school, you did some things with latitude and longitude. Also, like air traffic control, talking about the headings that people need to for navigation, degrees, minutes, seconds. So it could even be nautical too, navigation for boating and things like that. They talk about a little bit more accuracy. You don't want to hope that your airport's about at 25 degrees north or something. It'd be nice to actually get to the airport, right? So you have the exact location of where that is. So it's just a little bit more precision in your measurement. The other way we can write those numbers though is just as a regular decimal, and we call that DD, degree as a decimal. So I have an example of a number written that way too, 87.125. That's just in degrees, so or just in that regular unit. So it's the whole number part, and what's left over, the rest of it, that's not quite a whole degree. It's what part of a degree is that. In a real life situation, a great example of that, if you think about the difference between these numbers, if you've ever watched like a marathon or a race like that, or seen it on the Olympics, or if you've watched like the Boston Marathon, or even like the Gobblegate in Hastings, they have a big clock at the finish line that's showing people how fast they finished in their time. And when you look at their times, how do they give them to people? Well, it's always in hours, minutes, and seconds. So even at the Gobblegate, it's hours, minutes, seconds. So you're looking at it as more the form degrees, minutes, seconds, very similar to that, just replacing the hour idea with degrees. It's the same thing. So I could have run a marathon in 12 hours, 32 minutes, 15 seconds. And it probably would take me 12 hours to run a marathon, pretty sure. Or instead of saying it in degrees, minutes, seconds, I could have said it just in as a decimal. So I ran it in 12.5 hours. So that would be an example of a number that was in degree as a decimal, or in that kind of format. So do you want it all in one unit, or do you want it broken down? We just need to be able to go back and forth. So today we're going to talk about that. How do you go back and forth to convert from degrees, minutes, seconds to degree as a decimal? Because we need to be able to do that pretty much on autopilot. So we want to make sure we know how to go back and forth. All right, so for the first one, we'll take that first example I did. I want you to write it as a degree as a decimal. So 25 point something degrees, instead of breaking it down into minutes and seconds. So we're going to convert just like you would on the clock. If I want to convert 40 minutes into degrees, I would do it exactly the same as if I wanted to convert 40 minutes into hours on the clock. So 40 minutes is what part of an hour? Well, we would divide that by 60. And think about that, 40 minutes. That would be 2/3 of an hour, right? 40 over 60 reduces down to 2/3. So 40 minutes, 2/3 of an hour, that makes sense. And then how do you change seconds into degrees? Well, it's exactly the same as changing seconds into hours. So I would take 21 divided by 3,600, 3,600 seconds in a degree, same as in time. So I add those two pieces together, I'll get the decimal part to this number. So it'd be 25 point, go ahead and try it. It'd be 6725. So it's about 2/3 when you look at the decimal equivalent, and that makes sense because 40 minutes is about 2/3. We have a little bit over because it's 21 seconds. So if you think about what you're doing, you're just what's reasonable. Always double check that. 40 minutes. Think about the clock. Think about time. It's easier that way, but degrees work the same. So it'd be 25.6725 degrees. Degree is a decimal. Okay, let's go the other direction. If you want to convert going back, it's a little bit more labor intensive here. We want 87 degrees, however many minutes, and however many seconds. What we have right now is just this degree as a decimal. So what we have to do is go the other way. We have to convert this part of a degree, it wasn't a whole degree, into minutes first. So how would you change degrees into minutes? Well, it's exactly the same as changing degrees, or I mean hours into minutes. It's the same thing. So how do you change hours into minutes? Well, if I have 2 hours, how many minutes would that be? You do 2 times 60. Same thing here. How do we change 0.125 of a degree into minutes? I'm going to times by 60. And when I multiply that out, I think you get 7.5. Double check. Now 7.5, that means 7 whole minutes. So I have my 7 whole minutes, but then I had part of a minute left over. So that part of a minute I can convert over to seconds. So my leftovers, that part, how do you change minutes into seconds? Well, times by 60, and that would give you 30. Now, I think most people, just kind of common sense, would probably figure that out. Half of a minute is definitely 30 seconds, so we know that we did that accurately. Now, if you ended up with a decimal number for this 30 instead, I would have you round to the nearest second. Sometimes, though, what that means is you may end up with something that converts over into minutes then. If we round to the nearest second, say you had 59.9 seconds. Well, 59.9 would round to 60 seconds, but 60 seconds is the same as a minute, so that would be 1 minute, 0 seconds if you wanted to round that way. So just be a little bit careful. Your magic number, when you get to 60, that's going to move you up to the next unit. So going back and forth, let's try one more of each of those just to make sure you're good. So 34.820. See if you can try changing it over by what we just did. Pause the video, try it, and then check your answer and see how you did. All right, so we're taking 34 and we want to change it into minutes and seconds. So we take our 0.820 times it by 60 to convert into our minutes, which would be 49.2, I believe. So 49 minutes. And then we take our leftovers, the 0.2, to change it into seconds. We times by 60 again, which would give you 12. So then it would be 12 seconds. So 34 degrees, 49 minutes, 12 seconds. And double check reasonableness. 49 minutes is more than 3/4 of an hour, right? 3/4 of an hour is 45 minutes. It's a little bit more. So it's more than 3/4, more than 0.75. Sure it is, it's 0.8. So it's a pretty good guesstimate that we know that we're in the right ballpark. All right, let's try going the other direction. 75 degrees, 54 minutes, 12 seconds. I want you to write as 75 point something degrees, all in degrees. Make sure, pause the video, try it yourself first, and then check your answer. So we need to convert 54 into degrees and 12 seconds into degrees. Add those together, get your 2 decimal parts there, and I came up with 0.903. Again, reasonable for sure. 54 minutes is almost an hour, right? Almost a whole hour, 1. 0.9, pretty darn close to 1. So I think I can be pretty self-assured I did this correctly. All right, I want to show you on your graphing calculator now kind of I guess a shortcut. I'm not sure if it's any faster to type in, but it's a way for your calculator to do this for you without you having to remember what those conversions are. So if you want to change 34.820 into degrees, minutes, seconds, just go ahead and type in your number as a decimal, and you need to find your angle menu. So everybody look on your calculator there and see if you can find your angle menu. It's right above the apps. So it's second, apps, and you have this whole angle menu in here. First one's degrees, second one's minutes, number 3 is a little R, which you're going to become very familiar with very soon. Not yet, that'll be chapter 6, but look at number 4, the little triangle, and it says 2 degrees, minutes, seconds. That's what we want. So go ahead and press number 4. It says, do you want to change this to degrees, minutes, seconds? Well, sure I do. And look, we get the exact same answer as what we came up with, doing it by hand. I really like this one because messing around with, okay, times by 60, take the decimal, times by 60. It's not hard. It just takes time. So this is a really quick time saver for that one. Let's go the other way. To do the other one, you have to type in that 75 degrees. So type in 75, go to your angle menu, grab the degree symbol. 54 minutes, so go to the angle menu, grab the minute symbol, which is number 2. And 12 seconds. Now here's the problem. Houston, we have a problem. I don't have a seconds. If you look in your angle menu, there isn't one. So they didn't put it in there, which I think is really kind of not convenient, but it's not in there. So see if you can check your keypad. It's above a key. See if you can find the second symbol. And if you hunt around a little bit, it's above the plus sign, but it's alpha and then the plus sign. Kind of dorky, but that's where it is. And then how do we change it over? Just press enter. It's wonderful. Now, again, I don't know that keystroke-wise going into those menus, if that's any faster than just doing 54 divided by 60 plus 12 divided by 3600. But again, if you forget and you're not sure, it's a great backup plan for being able to double check and know that you have it converted over. So I just need you to be able to do that quickly and easily every single time we need to change them over. So go ahead and try these two on your graphing calculator. Now do those conversions. Go ahead and pause the video so you can double check, type it in. So actually type it in first and then check your answers. So go ahead and pause and try them. All right, when we do the first one then, if it's a negative angle, it's still going to be negative. That just means you're measuring clockwise instead of counterclockwise. It's still, whether you're in degrees, minutes, seconds, or degrees a decimal, works the same way. So it'd round out to that. So negative 310 degrees, 32 minutes, 24 seconds. Going the other way, degree is a decimal. It would be 101 point. And then I just went out to thousands. I think that's what the book is going to ask you to do as well. So that looks like it would be 0.239, if I'm rounding it out correctly to what we're doing there. So it was 86, so I think that would look pretty good, and that would be in degrees. So being able to convert back and forth, that's our big goal for today. So degrees, minutes, seconds, degree is a decimal. So that finishes up section 5.1.